welcome to Better Together, a leader's guide to collaborative schools. We are happy you're here today for the conversation. My name is Jamie McPherson.
And I am Ben Talsman. To kick things off today, we're going to take a look back at a famous ad from the distant past. You might recognize this as the Mac and the PC people. And we brought that up because around the office, we got a little bit of that vibe going on. You see, Jamie, she's
On the Mac.
and I am the PC. That is literally true insofar as I cannot use those Apple products. I need my PC.
And well, I, of course, need my Mac.
I have been in the classroom for almost 20 years, spent most of my time teaching upper elementary, middle school students, whereas my esteemed colleague,
I'm not that old, but I spent about 14 years in the classroom teaching kindergarten and fourth grade.
we're different in other ways as well. I'm definitely an early bird.
And I love my night hours.
And if you take Jamie out for a drink, she might like to order.
A hazy IPA, but Ben, you would likely order a.
I think I'd prefer more of a porter or a stout. Plus, I am a noble individual in almost every regard. And Jamie, perhaps not so much. But despite the fact that we have our differences,
We have learned to collaborate well together, and that's what happens in most teams. You know, the differences make you stronger, and we have found that here between the two of us, but also amongst our team. This is our team at a wonderful event at a school, and so we know that there's so much power in collaboration, and it is those differences that make us all a stronger team. So we are here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we do lots of fun things in our normal day-to-day. So some of the things we do, we get to lead student engagement. So we go to schools, we bring them awesome hands-on learning, inquiry-oriented science and engineering activities. We have field trips, the students that come to our place every day and get to experience inquiry live and in action. And we also have summer camps and other fun things to do. So check us out. Give for your school, your district, if you're looking for something fun, engaging, and learning filled to do with your students. Something else we get to do though is we also get to work with wonderful teachers each and every day. And so you'll find us at conferences, but I think what we love the most is getting into schools and districts and really figuring out their needs and then being able to deliver engaging, thoughtful, just great PD around what it is that each individual school district needs. And we love designing that and customizing that for teachers and school districts. So if you're in the need for that, you definitely will want to hang on and till the end because we have some information for you regarding that. But the cool thing that we also do is we're unique in our collaborative culture because we actually work as part of a larger institute, and we are part of the Andel Institute, which is a biomedical research facility where every single day there are 500 or so individual scientists, researchers, and support staff who work towards finding cures for things like neurodegenerative diseases and cancers. And it's wonderful that we get to collaborate and be a part of that work with them. So we learn from the scientists, we take what we've learned and we hand off those processes and those ideas to our teachers, and then the teachers then take those ideas and they extend that learning to their students. And then of course the students will then have opportunities to learn from scientists as well here. So what we like to say is it's just a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful collaborative culture that we have here at the Andel Institute. And with that in mind,
our objective today is to think about that idea of collaboration, the same sort of rich collaboration we have here, and then to help you to do that just a little bit more excellently in your schools. So we've got administrators, teachers, students. We want all of them to be able to collaborate successfully. We hope that the lessons that we share today can help you shift the needle just a little bit to make your collaborative culture deeper and richer. Now, in order to do that, we've got 5 different things we're going to explore. First, the fundamental problem which gets in the way of successful collaboration and the way in which to solve that. We're going to look at that solution through 2 different lenses. We're going to look at it through the cultural lens and then also through the systematic lens. We've got a little time in here for questions and answers. Then we're going to finish with a thank you where you can win some valuable prizes. So if you would like to take notes along the way, there is a link there that I will put into the chat box. It will, if you are logged into Gmail, allow you to make a copy. And you can take notes to just keep track of your ideas, your thinking, as we share ideas from ourselves and also from your colleagues over the course of our time. So with that, let's dive into the first section, the problem and the solution. I'm going to tell you a story. A story is going to be a little bit peculiar, maybe a little whimsical and fun, but it's going to drive at something deep and important about the fundamental nature of collaboration. This story starts, as so many good stories do, with a pair of baboons. These baboons have set their alarms for 7 o'clock in the morning because they are going to go fishing. They head on down to the local fishing hole, and with their scooper and their net cooperating together, they can catch 6 fish. That's 3 for each of them. But what if one of those baboons gets a sneaky idea? He says, hey, if I set my alarm for 6 o'clock in the morning, I can get there early. I'll get both tools, and working by myself, I can catch 4 fish. Not as many as the 6 they could catch together, but they'll all be mine. And 4 is more than 3. The other baboon, of course, said baboon, gets nothing. What happens if both baboons get the same idea? Well, in that case, they squabble. When they squabble, they break their implements, and using those broken implements, they can only catch 1 fish each. Now, some of you will recognize this as a little twist on one of the most famous scenarios in all of game theory, called the prisoner's dilemma. In this case, of course, it is the baboon's dilemma, and it introduces something really interesting. Because if you are participating in this, let's say that you are baboon B, you've got a choice. You can set your alarm at 7 and cooperate, or at 6 and betray your partner. Now, across town, your partner's doing the same thing. And if your partner across town has set their alarm for 7, if they're going to cooperate, guess what? You are better off betraying. Instead of 3 fish, you'll get 4. If your partner has set their alarm for 6, well, once again, you are better off betraying. So no matter what your partner chooses, it's in your self-interest to betray your partner, to set that alarm for 6 o'clock. Now, we have played this with students, with teachers, with administrators around the country thousands and thousands of times. The way we do it is you play against somebody 5 times. You play with somebody 5 times, either showing them the open hand of cooperation or the closed fist of betrayal. And then after you play with one person, you play with 4 more. So 5 rounds against 5 people, a total of 25 games. Then we look at the results. And do you know what we always see? Here's a representative sample. Right? When we look at those results, we find that the average number of fish caught is less than if everyone had cooperated. So looking out for your self-interest hurts the group. But wait, there's more. Not only does looking out for yourself hurt the group, but every single person in the thousands of times that we play this scores lower. They catch less fish than if they had just been cooperative. So looking out for yourself actually hurts yourself. The lesson here is that the best move for me is to think about we. And this is true in so many collaborative situations in society and also in schools. So the way we think about this is a lot of people approach this game as the baboon's dilemma with the apostrophe in front of the S, thinking about a singular baboon. But if we really want to accomplish the deepest, richest form of collaboration and benefit the group and the individual, we think about it with that apostrophe after the S. We're thinking about the team. We're thinking about the we. So in the chat box, I'd love if you could share some ideas thinking around this shift from thinking individually to thinking collectively, thinking about the benefit of the team. So as leaders, if you could just share in the chat box a couple of your ideas around how we can shift thinking in our organizations from me first to we first. We'll give you just a minute where we'll be quiet and let you do your typing. And even if you're just joining us, this same question applies. Even if you missed a little bit of the story of the baboon's dilemma, you can catch the recording and get all caught up. Tara says opportunities to share best practices with each other rather than each teacher staying behind a closed door. Wonderful, wonderful. Sharing those best practices. Collaboration among teams, wonderful. Now, as we go throughout our day, make sure that you are checking those suggestions in the chat box. We are better together. We want to share those ideas. So thank you to everyone. Kate, excellent idea. Wonderful. Outstanding. So that was just a little bit about the problem, the fundamental problem, and the mental shift that can help us overcome it.
Awesome. And again, shifting now over to the idea of culture versus systems, we need both. And so we'll jump into this cultural foundation section, which really talks the idea of how we can collaborate successfully. So I have to start with a little story, not as long as the baboon's dilemma, but just a quick story because Ben, a few days back, brought to me this 3-page plan. And he was like, hey, I really have these great ideas around what we can do for this admin webinar we have coming up. And I looked at it and I noticed he was thinking architecture and systems and design, which is all strategy based and important. But my mind didn't go there immediately. My mind went to the relational side of things, where I was thinking, like, what are these conversations going to sound like? How are we going to make sure that principals and admin were ready to implement the ideas we have? And how can those admin then build trust with their team to actually implement these and make them happen in their schools? So again, we realize, it takes both. It's a kind of a merging of the two. There has to be vision, but there also has to be traction. And so again, talking to the idea of collaboration, this is exactly what we experienced while building this one out. Oftentimes, though, I think about it, think about this in your own building. So we've all sat in on a meeting that probably looked something like this. And as we look at that, it seems like everything is going as expected, right? Doesn't seem like anyone's in disagreement. They're not maybe smiling, but they're what seemingly look engaged. I put a question mark there. But what is missing? And I think that's the big question here, because if you look at it, they all look like collectively they're doing what's expected of them, right? But that is the question, because what we see in an image like that is this is all surface level agreement that's going on in this meeting, and we often have to ask ourselves, what is it that is under that surface level? What's the iceberg that isn't getting revealed yet? And so some of those things could be things like unspoken concerns. What are those concerns that nobody wants to put a voice to because they fear that it's fear based, right? And so these unclear instructional expectations. They don't want to ask the questions because they think they assume that they know the answer, right? And so they might they might get embarrassed, or they might not feel comfortable bringing that into that meeting. How about unresolved parent pressures? That could be on teacher facing or even admin facing, right? There's a lot of pressure that gets put on us in that realm of our worlds. And then also uncertainty about the data. We know that data is important. It drives our instruction, but sometimes we have to ask, what is this data even telling us? What's the story it's telling us? And oftentimes we get frustrated with that and also feel a little fear in asking those questions. Just giving a voice to those doubts that we have about certain initiatives our districts are taking on. And so, sometimes we just kind of go with the flow. We take on a new curriculum. We're like, yes, yes, yes. We're always saying yes. But what we really are not hearing are those unvoiced concerns that are legit concerns, and we want to surface those. So how do we bring those to the surface? All of them are valid, and really, it doesn't make us inadequate to have these concerns. It's very opposite. It makes us human, and these are the things that we should be bringing up and feel comfortable talking to. But it's hard in kind of imagining a world where we can do this sometimes, because if we take we're all starting at the same path, right? We can venture off in two different ways. If we go to the left, this is where we stay polite, we stay busy, but we also stay stuck, right? And so if we think the starting point again is we all, we have same or similar talent, whatever district we're in. We have same or similar schedules, whatever district we're in. We have same and similar students, regardless of the district we're in, right? So we're facing the similar challenges, similar starting point, but it's up to us to decide which direction we take. Now, again, if we take that one on the left, there's probably not a lot of upward trajectory, but if we take the one on the right, this is where we see teachers servicing problems rather quickly. They're able to take initiatives and run with them because they have the support that's needed. They can adjust instruction rapidly, again, because that support is there. They have that supportive foundation. And also because they then can improve collectively. So you look at it as a whole, we see movement happening in districts that can take the path where that upward trajectory feels comfortable and safe. And so how do we get from that meeting, which you see on the left, and then the other one on the right here, which is a little bit different, and as you guys probably have seen in your own spaces, when staff feel comfortable and safe, they're willing to raise their hand, share ideas, take risks, regardless of what the outcome might be. And there's one key factor to making this happen. And really, it comes down to psychological safety, right? We have to make sure that we're instilling an environment and a culture where our teachers and our staff feel safe to take those risks. And so what we always like to do, whether it's teachers or admin, we always like to give really practical ways to actually to implement this idea, right? Or the ideas we're showing you today. So for your own admin toolbox, we have a couple strategies here. The first one being, if we want to really see this happen, how do we build psychological safety? A tool that we can utilize for analysis on whether our staff we have that foundation in our district or school is this idea of discussion mapping. Now, this is a wonderful activity or strategy you can use with, hand this off to your teachers, show them this video, have them use it with their students. We love it teacher facing, but it's also really effective at the admin level and to show your teaching staff. So we'll watch this. I love these Edutopia videos. They're 1 minute quick strategies. They validate the lack of time that we have. This is a wonderful example of something we could do to affirm psychological safety.
Is there somebody in the room that's got a burning question they'd like to start with?
How do you think this changed Joshua's perspective?
So discussion mapping is a way to give students a visual for the discussion that has taken place in real time. This discussion technique allows them to be able to think deeply and from several perspectives. So the first thing I do is introduce a topic that I want students to focus on.
The discussion for today should be...
It's entirely up to the students to keep the discussion moving.
What do you guys think was the clear...
In the meantime, I'm mapping that discussion. I put students on a sheet of paper, and then I literally use a pen and trace from one voice to the other.
Her biggest action was getting on the train.
So after discussion, I show students the map.
Take a look at what you accomplished.
And then I ask them to debrief. Write down what went well and what needs to change for next time. What does the map show us about how well we talk, how well we listen? They can see their improvement in a very real, visible way.
So again, a great tool in the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well. And what we can see here is just kind of two different things can happen. And actually, there's more than just these two options you see here. If we look at the image on the left, we can see visually, drawing that discussion out, that it looks like person A is doing a lot of the carrying of the conversation, right? And there might be some instances where this is helpful and useful. But what we see happening in the other image on the right there is that it's shared space in talking, right? We can see how the comments are getting bounced off one another in a somewhat equal fashion. And so what this can really identify for us if we choose to do something like this within our own staff, within our own schools and with our staff, is we can see, are there people who might not be voicing their concerns, which are valuable? So are we missing out on voices being heard? Is there somebody who's really kind of taking on a lot of that space and not letting others in? So I love this. Like I said, it's a great visual for that work. If you want that resource, it's up at the top right corner. If you click on that, that'll take you to just a template where you can have that. You can implement it tomorrow if you wanted to. So take advantage of that or hand it off to your teachers and let them take advantage of that. It's a really great strategy to try out. But getting to the idea of Okay, there we go. Getting to the next idea here of psychological safety. And so that's kind of how we can analyze how psychological safety may or may not be in our building, one small way. Another way is is to have a tool for building that culture, right? And so this is a great way. Again, you can share this one with your teachers. I love this as an admin though, because if you take a look and just spend a little bit of time, maybe it's once a week or bi-weekly or once a month, but share one instructional misstep that you had. Describe what you learned from that misstep, that small failure, and what you had to do either on the spot or what you learned after to adjust for next time. I think anytime we can show our vulnerability and we can open up to teachers that, we all are human, it really helps build a culture that allows us to grow and develop and really truly be collaborative. And so that's just another small way to do. But again, find space to spend just a couple minutes. It could even be monthly to do that small exercise. It really does help really just open up, conversation and get other teachers to share theirs as well and feel comfortable in that. And then even bring it into the classrooms, right? We're showing failures with our students and showing how we learn from all of those things. And that's really, really important. Another thing we can do is just normalize dissent. So when we're building that culture that we're looking for collaboration, whenever we're introducing a new idea or a plan, it's kind of assign somebody the red team voice, which, in military training, there's a red and a blue, and, the blue is our own ideas and our own direction that we want to head, but the red is that of our adversary. And so it's nice to take that different perspective and ask those questions and really assign it to somebody and say, hey, today I want you to be the one who's going to be the red team. Ask those questions. What might we be missing with this new initiative or this new idea? Where could this fail? Because these are things that we want to understand, not only to get a different perspective, but also because we want to feel like it's okay to disagree, because that's where the best work happens. Another, kind of on the idea of that safety creates voice. We know, though, that psychological safety in and of itself is not enough. So we need to really be clear about our purpose, because we know that ultimately purpose, and actually shared purpose, creates direction. So clarity around purpose really does align our efforts and puts us heading in that same direction. So we think about all the things we tackle in any given time, at the admin level, you're thinking about things like scheduling and staffing and new instructional initiatives, or even old ones that are still, kind of in route and going, and the ball is rolling on them. Professional development, all of these things, these are just a few of the hundreds of things that you have to deal with and you handle every day. But if we're not aligned around a shared purpose, it can sometimes be difficult to really have a clear vision for what it is we're looking to try to do each and every day. So we can develop what's called initiative fatigue, where it's so tiring to think of anything new because we just don't have the space to do it. And so how do we overcome that? I think one of the things that we can do as a tool for analysis here is really look at a mission compression. So it's asking ourselves this question: do we have a clear mission? So I pose this to you, but I also have you pose it to your staff. Have each of you write out your entire mission statement, or give it to your staff. Here's our full mission statement. Maybe it's 25 words. I think it's 26, but whatever it is that your mission statement is, how long it is, see if you can take it down to about half. Can you cut that mission statement down to half? What are the essentials? So you can see an example here. This is fewer than 12 words, but then from that next step, take it down even further, right? And so, now we're down to 6 words. What is that? It's actually 5 here, but 5 or 6 words. What does that sound like? What does that mean? What is really of value here for us? And if you're willing to try and be a little bit brave, can you take it down to 3? And so here it comes down to readers, thinkers, and contributors. That's what we're really looking to develop and grow each and every day. It just really helps us hone in on what matters to us. And I think that's a valuable use of time. It only takes a couple of minutes. Another thing we can do is this values rating. So it's answering this question, kind of similar to the last, but what's important to us, right? Take on, what Amazon has done so effectively and give it a rating, a 5-star rating. So here's how to go about this one. Have staff list your values, and you can all list them together, get that list together, and then have them rate them. Give them a star rating where they have to at least vote 1 star for each of them, but they could vote up to 5 stars for each of them. And after you've kind of taken all of that in and you've culminated all that information, then get to narrow it down and say, so amongst our staff, what is really important to us, and narrow it down to maybe 3 or 5, but here you see it narrowed down to 3. Really, it's relationships, innovation, and equity in this district. So again, those were the most highly rated skills or things that they were really looking to do each and every day. A very valuable activity, which doesn't take a whole lot of time. But again, it's important for us to be on this, to understand and have a same or similar mission as we go into each of our days. And then also thinking about leading with purpose and mission, just having purpose-driven allocation. And so what actually is that? I like to think about our time and looking at the calendar. Your calendar is your budget, right? So that's how much you have to spend each and every day. Things like time, energy, attention, and money, these are all allocations that you have to make each and every day. How does that look on your own calendar? So just do a quick assess, do a calendar check and ask yourself, does our schedule reflect our priorities? And if we're not putting time, energy, attention, money into the things that build our teams, what are we doing? And just also remembering that every yes costs something, right? So every time we want to say yes, there's a value there, and we have to find the place where that value is coming out of. So just another kind of way to kind of just check ourselves and make sure that we are aligned. I think it comes down to these 3 things. Again, it's psychological safety, having honest dialogue, shared purpose, making sure our direction is clear, and then of course that intentional allocation where structure reinforces our priorities. And ultimately, we know that successful collaboration, it's not just about working together, but it's people working together to improve together with intentionality behind it. So with all of that, we would like to give you that space again to share your ideas. How do you cultivate a culture for collaboration? We're going to put that link in the chat. Thanks, Ben. Should be there for you. And I'm going to turn it right over to Ben. Ben, you can pick up from there.
Sounds great. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your ideas about how you accomplish those important characteristics for cultivating a culture of collaboration, how do you successfully cultivate psychological safety and trust? How about shared purpose? How do you come to that shared purpose as an organization? How do you practice intentional allocation? All you have to do is click the plus underneath each of these, and it will allow you to create a post where you share one of your ideas. Again, this is a Better Together event, so we'd love if you could share some of the things that you found successful with your school, with your district, with your organization. We'll give you just a minute or two to type here. I see up here in the top there are at least a couple people typing. If you've got any other important factors or methods, go ahead and share that over here. Self-deprecating humor, I love that.
Love it.
When you see comments that you love, you can put a little heart there. You can also add comments if you'd like to add. This will be a live document you have access to going forward. So if you'd like to look back at any of the ideas shared, you can just revisit our Padlet. Got lots of people typing, so
nice.
Step back and let them share their ideas. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Also, just quickly talk to Padlet too for teachers. Great resource to use in the classroom for cultivating all those ideas together and building that kind of what we talked about already. That shared that collaborative environment really helps to see ideas, get them out there. Share ideas, add to ideas.
Jamie mentioned the values rating. You could do that on a Padlet.
Yeah.
Put the different values staff has suggested there, and then it gives you the option to do like a 5-star rating here. So you could use this tool to accomplish one of those excellent strategies that Jamie just mentioned. Wonderful. Love all the ideas popping up here. Just in the interest of time, we're going to let you finish up that comment, but we are going to dive back into our comment again. Our content again. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas. That's really what it's all about. So Jamie shared some awesome ideas about how you can lay the foundation for a culture of collaboration. I also want to look at this through the lens of systems design. So when we think about systems design, we're going to share a lot of different ideas. Some of those ideas, hopefully, are things that you really resonate with, that you want to grab onto and bring back to your organization. Some of them might be things you already do or things that aren't right for your context. So feel free to pick and choose from the different ideas that we share. And then again, hopefully, to share some ideas amongst each other about what you're finding success with as we think about designing systems that foster great collaboration. So the first big idea I want to focus on is symbolized by that clock right there, and that is the idea of time. Right? Jamie talks a little bit about this in that intentional allocation part, but we want to make sure that we've built structures where there's protected collaboration time. I think about that in 2 dimensions. First, that horizontal collaboration, where people are collaborating with those who do similar things to them. Maybe that's the same grade level or the same content area. But we also want to have that vertical collaboration time intentionally planned into our structures, where people can connect and collaborate with those who do things that are different than them. We use the jigsaw approach strategy a lot with students, where they can learn from some students, mix it up, share the ideas that their group came up with, benefit from the ideas of other groups, and then bring those back to their home group. When we practice this sort of structure, this is a powerful way to help share best practice throughout an organization. I also have a highlight there. This should be conspicuously protected. Pro tip: mention to your staff some things that could have intruded on collaboration time that you intentionally rejected, right? Be very forthcoming about how this time is important and things are not going to interfere with it. And then, of course, it goes without saying, make sure this is during contract hours because we want people to enjoy and appreciate this collaboration time. So time's an important factor. We also want to consider space. Think about your collaborative spaces, formal collaborative spaces or informal collaborative spaces like break rooms, and ask yourself this important question. Are they more appealing than the non-collaborative spaces? Because collaboration is always competing against eating a salad at your computer. Right? So we want to make those spaces appealing so that they have this gravitational pull. When people come to these collaborative spaces, they have the opportunity for the sort of informal collaboration which drives a ton of innovation. The most innovative companies spend lots of time, energy, and effort building collaborative spaces that foster those informal connections, build those relationships, and share those ideas in wild and crazy ways that you might not have planned for. It's where some of the greatest innovation comes from. So we've got time and space are important system design factors. We also want to think about goals. Right? This is a little bit more specific and concrete than purpose. We want to think about concrete objectives that we want to accomplish as an organization. And those goals must be two things. They must be clear and they must be shared. They must be communicated successfully. Everyone in the organization should know what we're striving for as our goals. When we work with schools to help develop those clear shared goals, we love an affinity mapping exercise, right? Again, the Post-it note is one of the greatest pieces of educational or organizational technology. And just by doing some clever sorting activities of people's ideas, we can come to some conclusions about what we really feel, some consensus about what those clear shared goals should be. If we really want to take a deep dive, we can do a double design approach where we do a flare and a focus, both for the problem and for the solution. Right? We do some divergent thinking, generate lots of ideas, and then have some processes to narrow those down for the problem and then again for the solution. Really helps to establish those clear shared goals. So if you would like some support with that process, again, you've got our email addresses there at the bottom of the screen. Beyond time and space and goals, there's lots of talk in organizational thinking these days about octopods. I think that's an acceptable plural. And people think about this because the octopus demonstrates a really cool feature of distributed decision making. Each of the tentacles of an octopus has their own semi-autonomous nervous system, so they can make decisions based on the information that they're getting from their local environment. Those systems can communicate back up to the central nervous system, can receive communication from the central nervous system, but they do exercise a degree of autonomy. So when we think about giving some autonomy to the different groups at our school, those clear shared goals can guide that process, but we want to open the floor up for different groups of teachers to connect, to collaborate, and to be able to solve the problems that they're facing. This is fundamentally a PLC model. Jamie's our PLC pro. She's going to take a deeper dive into that in just a moment. So we wanted to start off systems design thinking about these big kind of grandiose ideas, time and space and goals and distributed decision making. But now we want to get down to the nuts and the bolts, some practical protocols that successful schools can implement to facilitate outstanding collaboration. And as I mentioned, our PLC Pro is going to run with PLCs.
Ben was so kind to turn the section over to me, which I was excited about because it is one of the things I'm really loving diving deeply into lately. We get the opportunity to work with lots of schools, and one of the newest initiatives, one of the things we've added to our many offerings is this PLC professional development opportunity for schools and districts. And so I've had the opportunity to go into several schools and really to speak to what Ben was talking about, give shape to lots of different teams and give them autonomy too. So within one district, there are lots of different teams meeting. Within one school, there's lots of different teams meeting. And sometimes it's grade level teams. I was just working with a district that the focus was high school special ed and seeing how PLCs could work for them. And it was quite powerful. And talking to the idea of horizontal, but also vertical alignment, it's important to do both and visit and have space set aside so teachers can visit with their grade level teams with intentionality, but also across those grade level teams as well for specified, different specified things. And so one of the key, I think, successes of a PLC is making sure we're doing these 6 things. And so when we're talking about this idea of systems and getting down to a cultural core, we know that when we can give something strong roots, well, it'll end up with giving off strong results. And so one of the things that works really well for PLCs is just starting every single PLC with a shared purpose. This is where we just agree on the exact same thing. Our mission is aligned, our goal and intent is the same. We just talked about that on a school-wide or district level, but also thinking about that within our own team that we're working with. Also focus on learning. So, we want to really, it's not necessarily that, Johnny did this today or Samar did this today. This is the evidence from the learning, and that's what we're going to focus on. So with that comes this idea of collaborative inquiry. We're constantly working together to figure out what is working and what isn't, and we're constantly asking why. And that will lead us to some sort of results orientation within those PLCs. So, we're constantly measuring impact. Is it working? Is it not? What are we going to do about it? And with that in mind, there's a collective accountability. This is probably my favorite piece of PLCs because it kind of lets go of that idea that these are my students and these are your students. It really allows us to see that all of our students are all of ours, right? So there's that collective accountability, which I think is so essential. And when we think about that last piece here, it's building that culture and trust. So within those teams, we've identified a collaborative culture that works really well, that is built on trust and understanding. And with that, we can have honest conversations without feeling like we're going to be penalized because of what happens out of that. And so I think it's really important that we can be honest in those meetings. One of the cool things too that I've seen come out of some of this work is that teachers, this also provides an opportunity. Ben's going to talk to instructional rounds, but it gives teachers an opportunity to get into other classrooms. If they did something really well in a space, have that teacher go into the classroom where those scores may not be working out as, they may not be achieving as high as those, and have that teacher that did really well with their group go in and visit, do the same thing with that group and see if it makes a difference, which leads to these 4 questions. And so this foundational work comes from DeFore, and I like to call him the founding father of PLCs. Great book, Learning by Doing. It's in its 4th edition, but it's a great read if you're looking to implement something like this in your school. I will say an even better solution instead of buying the book is just to reach out to us, because this is something that I have read the book cover to cover. It is amazing, but I love making opportunities for teachers to see that this is possible in their own classrooms within their own districts. And so there's 4 questions that DeFore kind of bases this work around, and these are the 4 questions that we would bring into every single PLC. So it's, what do we want students to know and be able to do? Getting down to the very clear goal. What is it exactly? From there, we move into this, how will we know if each student has learned it? So where is that data? Where's the evidence of learning? And are we doing things like common formative assessment? So what I am teaching and then that assessment that goes along with that. So is my coworker, Ben, in his classroom. He's doing the same exact thing that I'm doing as far as that assessment goes. So we know we're getting data that is similarly aligned. Also from there, we go into this next question, which is how will we respond when some students do not learn it? We know this happens, right? We see this every day. So what are some interventions we want to put in place? What might have worked for one teacher, they could bring into the classroom of another, and then we reteach, right? And then there's also this 4th question, which I think is equally as valuable as all the rest. How do we extend the learning for students who are already proficient? How in our own classroom, but also collaboratively with the other classrooms. We take back what we've learned, and then we bring that into our next meeting. We implement that new learning in some way. We share what we were doing, and then we go try it out again in our classrooms. We monitor, we assess, we adjust. We're constantly changing to meet the needs of our students. And then we analyze that data. So that's important. We come back, we bring the data into those PLC meetings, and we see what needs to be done and what has been accomplished. And that's a really important part to those PLC structures. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ben for instructional rounds. Thanks for sharing the space there.
Oh, my pleasure. And yeah, the DeFores are kind of like the founding father and mother of PLCs. Jamie is some sort of like knight in shining armor right now, really doing a lot of great work with a lot of schools to help support the development of successful PLCs. And I think if we had to pick kind of one of these ideas to ground successful collaboration, PLCs is where lots of people start. But again, there's lots of different approaches, lots of different tools that successful administrators can use. Instructional rounds is definitely another one. We learn so much from observation, from seeing examples. And instructional rounds give us an opportunity to see what's going on in other classrooms and to glean some of those successes and take them back to our own. So this is a little bit of a sensitive subject sometimes because teaching can be so private and personal. A lot of teachers feel about their classrooms the same way that middle schoolers feel about their Dear Diary. And so being able to capitalize on this benefit of experiential observation requires some careful setup. And again, something that we love to do with schools. Again, there's a book at the foundation of this, Instructional Rounds in Education, City Elmore et al. They've got a couple of really important ideas that we make sure to do with schools when thinking about instructional rounds. First of all, we want to keep everything centered around the instructional core, right? The teacher, the students, and the content, and then the relationships between those three. We want to think across the school, across the organization about a specific problem of practice. A problem of practice is something that is related to that instructional core. It's directly observable. It's got some objectivity to it. It's within our locus of control, so it's actionable, and it's connected to those bigger goals and purpose that we have as an organization. And we're going to be striving to address and improve this professional practice together, collaboratively. When we go into classrooms, it's super important that we make our observations descriptive only. We're not here to evaluate or analyze. Descriptive observations are just stating what's seen or heard using concrete language and suspending conclusions. We're not here to analyze or evaluate. That helps make this a safe space for teachers to share honestly and with some vulnerability. Now, you might be asking, how in the world do you help teachers to do this? Again, when we do this with schools, simple, powerful approach, observation, calibration, protocol. You start off by sharing just some statements, right? Pieces of paper with words on them that a teacher might write down. And you have teachers look at and analyze those and determine which of those are descriptive and which are evaluative. Then you have them look at some teaching and make their own observations, striving to be descriptive. So usually we're striving here to lower the stakes. That stake is as low as you can go. Quite often we watch a clip from somebody outside of our school or organization. One of the best things to do here, though, is to have an administrator teach some students and to observe that person in their practice. We're asking our teachers to be vulnerable, and so modeling that vulnerability can be especially powerful. And then once they've made those observations of that lesson, now we want to get together and share our ideas. What did you observe and why? Are we observing in a descriptive way? And build a consensus around how to do this in a way that's going to be safe. So we've got specific problems of practice that are related to the instructional core. We're collecting evidence that's descriptive only about what's going on in our schools. Then we want to look at transparent and aggregated data about what's happening so we can look at the patterns. Here's some sample data about a school that's wrestling with depth of knowledge. So they did a couple of observations, November and January. You can see there's just a subtle shift where the questions that they're asking are getting a little bit deeper. Again, this is aggregated, so we're not looking at a specific teacher's practice. There's no way to use this for evaluation or judgment, so we can do this in a really honest way. Now, that graph there brings up a really important consideration when it comes to systems design, and that is making our metrics cooperative instead of competitive wherever possible. Co-opetition is this really powerful idea that what we're striving to compete against is a goal or a standard or an objective, but we're all pulling the same direction. We're working as a team on that. So you've got a grade level of teachers working on a challenge or a school that's working on a challenge. They're all on the same team, and their opposition, the thing they're pulling against, is that goal. Right? You've heard this saying before, what gets measured gets managed. So if you really want to catalyze collaboration, structure your metrics in a way that's collaborative, where people are working together to achieve those outcomes. So we've talked about PLCs, instructional rounds. The last specific protocol I want to explore is coaching and mentorship. Here, one of the most valuable things, one of the biggest mistakes that can get made is making things too diffuse or making things too top-down. So the tip is use a teacher-selected focus area. Depending on what evaluative framework you use, whether that's Danielson or 5D or Marzano, there's lots being thrown at teachers. And if we really want to improve our practice, we've got to focus on one thing at a time. You can't improve 11 things simultaneously. So again, what we like to do when supporting schools in this sort of thing is a simple, powerful approach called rank the rubric. All you do is you have teachers look at that evaluative framework. We're still keeping this grounded in that evaluative framework, but now they're going to rank the different domains according to how confident and competent they feel about that area. They're finding those areas where they're feeling a little bit less certain, and we're going to zero in on those. Then we can look at the components within them and again repeat that process. Zero in on the areas where the teacher is really receptive to growth, where they really feel like this is an area where they can benefit from some coaching or some mentorship. When you have those engagements, it's really important that we shift away from the advice model. These quite often fail if we've got a situation where the coach or the mentor is the expert who has all the answers. Instead, it's more powerful to use an experimental design approach. Here we're going to think together about different things that we can try in order to help have a positive impact. Right? We've really got that growth mindset, that experimental scientific mindset, where we can become better practitioners by trying things out and by thinking clearly about how they go. So when we do this with schools, we've got our patented impact cycles approach. Very simple. You just have teachers document what they're going to try, when they're going to try it, how they're going to know it's successful. And then after they're done, they can indicate how it went and score it on a 5-star scale. And again, you can keep track of this. You can share this across a grade level or a school or a district. And you can have teachers show the things they'd like to try, the things they're currently trying, the things they've tried and how they went. And then you can have teachers go back and try something new, right? This cycle of continuous improvement grounded in a really simple, practical, physical thing. So we've explored some of those practical protocols. If there's any way that you'd like us to support your school, again, you've got our emails right down there, and there'll be a little form to fill out at the end where you can express the need for some support. So we've got a little time. Yeah, we've got a little time to dive in and check out this Padlet. In the chat box, if you go there, it will allow you to express some of the ideas that you've found success with regard to building systems that cultivate successful collaboration. Same approach here. You've got those little pluses. You can talk about how you've helped to find success with PLCs, with instructional rounds, with coaching and mentorship, or with other systems that you've helped to put into place to cultivate outstanding collaboration. And again, we see the people's fingers flying. Thank you for sharing your ideas. Greatly appreciated. Give you just a minute to type and to share. Oh, from a sister school. I like that. I love that. Yeah, better together doesn't mean just we're better together as one group. We can think across schools, right? Get insights from others. Makes me think of our affinity networks. We offer affinity networks to things like Jamie leads the New Teacher Network. I lead the network of eccentric educators. We've got an EdTech Explorers network where teachers from around the country who are interested in a certain topic or have a certain mentality can get together and share those ideas from all over the place about how we can tackle education's toughest challenges. In the interest of time, we're going to let you finish up your typing there. Again, we've shared lots of ideas. In an hour, we can't take a deep dive into any of them, but if you'd like to, well, right there in the corner are our email addresses. There's nothing that we love more than connecting with educators and supporting them in the work that they do. So we've talked about the fundamental problem and the solution. Jamie did a great job laying down some cultural foundations for successful collaboration. I did an okay job at talking about some of those systems. Now we're going to open it up for some questions and answers. There we are, sitting in a panel audience.
Yeah, so feel free to, you could ask us out loud if you wish, or you could put them in the chat. But what are some questions you have? Hopefully we can provide you with a sound answer. And then what we also want to do though too is, we'll get to it in a minute, but share with you, if you don't have you might not have a question right now, right? And as Ben has said many times, you can always email us. So if something comes up off of this information or something else out there just in the teaching world, admin world in general, we just love to be your advocates and to help you out in anything that you are challenged by or struggling with. And so please, like I said, email us if questions come out after. Let's see if anything comes through now in there in the chat yet. There's one. What key skills should students be focusing on to ensure they are ready for jobs of the future? That's a great question, Matthew. I can name a couple. I think it goes beyond what is covered in our content. I hate to say it. We all know it though. It's more of those things like perseverance. How can our kids push through when things get tough? Do they have the ability to continue on? I think that's a really important one. What would you share, Ben?
Well, we've done some work with our scientists actually at figuring out what skills helped make them successful. We've identified 7 success skills. We actually have some professional development built around that. So you can help cultivate the things we've identified: curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, like Jamie said, perseverance, self-direction, and one of those really important ones was collaboration. So learning how to do this kind of work as students really helps them be successful in the future. We also do a lot of work with tech, helping teachers prepare students to navigate an AI world. Tons of AI professional development that we've used to help schools navigate that whole landscape successfully. Great question, Matt.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And that's a good reminder too, Ben, because I think, what we're hearing about now in education is so much is AI centric, right? What do I do with it? How do I handle it? How do I manage it? What do we do in our district? What should we bring into the district? All these questions are great questions to be asking right now. If you haven't even maybe ventured down that road yet, we, as Ben mentioned, we provide districts with that support. So you can reach out to us for specific AI trainings, and we are happy to bring them to you in person, or we do them virtually as well. If you're not here in Michigan, we can't travel, but we also do them virtually. We prefer to be in person, but we always have a backup plan, and that is a virtual engagement. So we are willing to meet you where you are to get your needs met within your district.
Looking for any other questions coming through before we bring this to a close. I do have lots of thoughts on shifting skills for an AI world. What's going to become increasingly relevant is actually able to present to the International Leadership Association in Prague not too long ago about that very topic. So we've developed some really deep thinking around that question to help schools do just that, prepare students for a world that will be filled with artificial intelligence tools. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions rolling through.
All right, well, let's continue on. Just maybe a click.
I'll give you a click.
There we go.
I think maybe the computer just likes that screen too much. We'd like to finish by saying thank you. A couple things here. First of all, in the chat box, we've got a link to a needs analysis where you can express some of the things that your school or your district is feeling about how to become a little bit more awesome than you already are. If you would be so kind as to fill that out, you get a couple things. First of all, you can save 20% off of anything that you do with us. We've mentioned professional development, field trips. We've got teacher resources, our educator studio. It's tons of resources to help teachers do the kinds of things we've been exploring here. Blue Apple PBL projects. And also, you will be entered to win a free lunch and learn where you get a session of professional development plus lunch for your up to 30 staff members. So definitely fill that out. Kind of a smallish crowd today, so lots of opportunities to win. I'd like to finish off today before I hand it back to Jamie to bring it to a close, just by saying thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your ideas, and thank you for everything that you do to improve the lives and learning of the students in your district.
Yeah, just to echo off of what Ben said, all of this work is not possible without your guidance and support and you being in that very district that you are in right now. So thank you so much for all you do each and every day. And with that, like we said 100 times over, email us if you have any questions or if we can help you out in any way. And with that said, we hope you have a fantastic night. And thank you so much for being here today. Bye, everyone.
Great job, Jimmy.
Good collaboration.